Yo, welcome everybody. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to TCR Trinity Competitive Racing.
Well, TCR TJ is the Season 13 Golden Class Champion for Trinity Competitive Racing.
Oh, let's go, dude! Yes!
Chibar on the podium! He's on it by a 10! Gentlemen, side by side through one. And silent, and Seabreeze gets a half spin.
Let's fucking go!
Wheel bumping. DRS enable, let's do it. And Captain Blade battling it out for position. Captain Blade. Ickle, what the? Then McChicken goes around and he also makes
rewind down the front straight. Oh my god.
I gotta check the heart rate.
Why do we do this? Because of nights like this.
Alright, ready?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Where's my thing? Yo, welcome everybody to TCR, Trinity Competitive Racing, and welcome to episode number 31 of the Racing Debrief, TCR's podcast, where we combine the world of e-racing, sim racing, and TCR with real-life motorsports and Formula One. A true racing enthusiast listen. We're recording this episode on August 21st. And yeah, let's get into it. I'm your host, Z Freeze, and alongside me for this one will be my usual co-host of Camden, Luca. Welcome.
Good to be back. Great to be on the podcast per usual, and yep, just the two of us again this week. And we got a lot to talk about, actually.
Oh man, are you ready? Oh man, it's been a hectic week in the Discord. It really has, and it's kind of cool that we have this podcast because I think this season we're starting to use this more of like what's happening in TCR right now, because of obviously the F1 season's pretty much on a halt right now because of the summer break, although we'll get to that later on in the episode, and we'll integrate a little bit more of F1 and some other motorsports in, but for the most part it's been just us talking about the start of the TCR season and kind of things that have been going on, and I think a lot of our drivers can relate to that. And then if we're able to mix in some real-life motorsports as well, then it'll keep them interested, or even maybe new viewers as well. So I've kind of been enjoying getting on here and talking about what's been going on in TCR, because if there's one thing I could talk a lot about, it's TCR. I know a lot of it, so it's fun to get on here and kind of share some opinions, and it keeps the drivers interested, and nothing. I think it keeps everyone accountable, and it keeps everyone up to date, and yeah, it's also fun. So don't take anything. This is a pretty big preface or preface, however you like to say it. Tomato. Don't get your feelings upset. This is normal, and in any other industry, this is kind of normal if you think about it, right? Because what happens in F1? If who was that race director that they did bad and they got replaced him?
Michael Masi.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we don't talk about him.
Well, as an example, a good one. I mean, he messed up how many things? But in F1, the sport of F1, how many podcasts and talk shows and different different entertainment shows there are, and obviously he got a lot of criticism because he's in a role and he's expected to be in that role and be perform in his role, and either he would get criticized, or the drivers, or commentators, or whatever it is. But that's kind of our version, which is this podcast, the Racing Debrief. So I get a chance, you get a chance, others get a chance to come on here and kind of just talk about what's happening, and you really can't portray yourself any other way, right? If it's just whatever happens, and then like we can't choose how someone acts us. Like, we can't choose how Michael Massey acted or how a driver acts in real life. But it's the reaction of everybody else, you know. So I've been enjoying it. Long story short.
Yeah, me too. And I think podcasts are kind of part of this cultural shift that we've seen, because if you flash back 5 to 10 years ago, people would go on TV shows and they would talk about, you know, the sporting event of the previous weekend, and, you know, if somebody's mad at somebody, that's kind of how they would go and express themselves when the dust settles. But now it's podcasts. You see it in NASCAR with Denny Hamlin's podcast. He talks all sorts of crap after the races on the weekends. Formula One, I mean, everybody does it, and I think it kind of puts some fun into TCR. That way we're not just showing up and racing every week. You know, we have something to talk about, and it kind of keeps people on edge, and it keeps people thinking about TCR throughout the entire week instead of just a couple of days.
Yeah, let me just tell you, Denny Hamlin's podcast, Actions Detrimental, if I could say it properly. I really like that, and I think it's badass that a current driver, an owner, and, you know, gets to have his own podcast and come up with these ideas, because that's like great for the sport. It's great, more I guess content for NASCAR, and it keeps everyone accountable and transparent, for transparency's sake. That's great, because Denny Hamlin, you know, he's not afraid to put out his opinions. He doesn't care what people think. Hey, guess what? I don't care either. I really don't. And that's why I have this, because I really don't care what people think. If you didn't catch it by now, I really don't care. Denny Hamlin doesn't care. You know, a lot of these people who do these podcasts, they don't care. They're doing it either they either are saying those things because they actually mean them, and they have a platform to present them on, or they're doing it as more of an acting scheme to get more views, which is kind of all in podcasting. I mean, you never really know if someone's ranting for real or not, because rants could be somewhat real, somewhat fake. But it's also good to talk about things, to open things up, and to get to the end of ideas and theories and controversy, and kind of sit down and go through all that. So, you know, that's why I love this podcast, and I like talking about it, because I really don't care what people think personally, and we have a lot of things to talk about. So yeah, I think we'll start with the elephant in the room, so to speak.
What would that be, Seafreeze?
I don't know. I think there's a certain incident that happened last week in the Golden Class, and I think there was an appeal, or was trying to get appealed, and there was a lot of things have happened. And since then, the appeal has been finished, and somehow we're still talking about it. And we're still talking about it to the fact that we're still talking about it on the podcast. And you know what? We're probably still going to be talking about it after this podcast, because the people will have spoken, and they're going to start talking about it in the Discord. So we're going to keep running with it.
Sounds good to me.
Oh man, I honestly don't know what to think of the whole thing. I mean, it's not even like personally, and I'm gonna say this, whoever's watching, whatever. To be honest, I'm kind of bored of the incident and everything. I'm exhausted of it just because I've been dealing with it all week. But I think I mainly wanted to look over the incident for everybody and to give you my opinions on it, because I actually I was a steward in the appeal. I only really I think I'm going to do some golden stewarding now. I really haven't the last few years. I do mainly the appeals. I'll add in to get an extra eye on the incident. But now that everything is released and the appeal is out, and I think there was 7 to 9 different stewards. I think did it. I think it was all unanimous as well. A lot of the same explanation, and I also agree with the original statement or original steward's decision. I think what we're getting caught up on here is the explanation in the entirety of it. So I agree with the steward's decision. So I want to clarify my reasoning and to give everybody a little bit of closure, hopefully. But if those listening do not know what was happening, there was an incident between Carson and Whisper. What's Whisper's full username? It has something in front of it, doesn't it?
GTM Whisper is his full username.
Alright, so GTM Whisper and Carson, so it happened on lap 4 of the Golden Class, and there was an incident. I think the initial ruling was, racing incident, no further action. Carson appealed it, gave some evidence, and eventually was going through the process, and it was upheld. So the same incident, after adding more stewards to the table, it was unanimous at the end. So the incident is it's done now, no further action. Apparently there's still some needing of an explanation of either giving space or something, and I know Carson has been wanting an explanation. He's still been wanting to get an explanation, so I want to give him a little bit of that. Although, all in all, I will say that I don't trust any of the drivers anymore, Camden, because and that includes me too, because the ticketing system that we use, it used to be where the tickets would open up and only the person who made the ticket could message, and then the either head steward or for that class, or a steward in the class, would then have to give permissions to the other person involved, and that kind of worked pretty well. But the thing is, a lot of the I think it was just easier that once somebody added somebody in a ticket in an incident, that immediately they could give their footage without having to wait for the steward, let's say they weren't present, to give them a permission to then put in their messages. So we opened it up, I think, a couple seasons now. This way, when the ticket goes in, then everybody can technically type in there, but only those involved should be, typing stuff. But a lot of us have the urge to type in those tickets. So I don't trust anybody anymore, and I think we have to change that. And we have to either go back to the old method, or I have to figure out maybe there's another setting I can try and work with to get it to where when the ticket opens, only those involved, like obviously the original ticket holder would be able to type, the stewards would be able to type, and then we just need that other person involved. So if it's whether or not given the permission, or whether or not there's another way to do it, like if you're added, maybe it lets you. I got to look into that, but I think we have to go back to the old method. I don't know if you agree with that, but I think that could solve a lot of things initially.
I think one of the solutions will be if people just stop crashing each other on track and stop racing like it's the final lap every lap of the race, then we wouldn't have this issue. We're only 3 races in, and I feel like we've had as many tickets as we did all of last season. It's because people are just so aggressive, and there's been a couple of incidents that have been racing incidents, but there could have been a lot more room dealt with. And even, like, accidents happen. Like, I'm not saying, like, we shouldn't have any incidents on track, but even those incidents that get put in the tickets, like, mind your own business, people. Focus on yourself. If the incident doesn't involve you, then just stay out of it. I think going back to the old way would probably be the way to go, unfortunately, but if it means the system is a pain in the ass to where you have to wait for the other person to get permission, then so be it. But we definitely have an issue right now with these tickets getting flooded with comments, and it just blows up the whole thing. And I think that's been part of the problem as to why there's been so many fights and just chaos the past week. I think the old way might have to come back.
Fights, you say? No, we're not fighting. We're having a civil discussion here.
I don't know what civil discussions you're seeing, but they are not in the TCR Discord, I can tell you that.
It's been a little hectic, I'm not going to lie. Hey, I think a lot of leagues go through that, and I think that's part of it. And hey, I will say, and I will kind of defend, the aggressive nature of a lot of the incidences, because you kind of have to race that way. You kind of have to give, like, almost the bare minimum. And I get why there are a lot of incidents, because especially when you go higher and higher up, especially when you get more towards platinum, people always say, oh, why does platinum have the most incidents? Why can't they drive? This is platinum, this isn't silver. And it's a bad take, and I'll tell you why. Because all the platinum class drivers, the gap between 1 through 20, or at least the gaps in general, are a lot closer. There's more people, and I think I said this last podcast, there's more people on the same part of the track than there are in, like, golden or silver. It's a little bit more spread out. So you're putting in platinum all these drivers into one little door. Someone's getting trampled. I think I said that. Someone's getting trampled through the doorway. Whereas in silver, there's a little bit, you can kind of, maybe it's a double door, so you're able to bring more people through. And the speed is also really up there in platinum. So obviously, people are going to not give the most space, because then they'll just get overtaken and abused and used on track. So I get why it's like that. We're also more of a competitive nature, as when you get higher up towards platinum, or golden, or even the top of silver, top of golden, top of platinum, it gets a little bit more competitive between each drivers, because they want to win. So I get why, it's a part of it. But I do agree with you, Camden, that at the end of the day, there's times to battle and there's times not to battle, and I think we could limit some incidents. Although I won't say the driver's standards is terrible. I just think in some situations it's like really just unneeded, like whether it's be early on in the race or a simple overtake that should just be simple, yet it turns into a wreck. But I think across the board we've had some good races this year, so I think it's just a matter of damage limitation, so to speak. But yeah, I don't know what else. I ranted, and then I was going to come back, and I forgot where I was coming back to. But yeah, I think we can maybe go back to the original ticketing idea, possibly. But the original idea of what you said also works. Just stop getting into incidents, and then we won't have a problem.
Right. And really, I agree that the driving style has shifted in the last few years, not just, on console games, iRacing, but in real life as well. Like, there's just been kind of a cultural shift to where people just drive more aggressively, but it can be done the old-fashioned way. I mean, look at B-Tom last season. I know he got in a lot of incidents, but the statistics say that he only won a single race and ended up winning the championship, mainly because he didn't DNF. You put yourself in those positions to be aggressive and constantly making moves, you're going to end up having DNFs. That was the difference in the Platinum Championship last season. That was the difference in the Silver Championship last season. That's the difference in real life still. I mean, you look at all the champions, they're consistent. They don't crash out. They don't get into incidents. It shouldn't just be about winning races all the time, the way that, that cultural shift has kind of leaned towards recently. Like, everyone's just focusing on winning this race. It's win or die. Like, no, like, even if you're in a situation like me this season where I'm kind of mid-pack towards the back of the pack, my goal is just to get points every race. And I'm not going to be doing that if I'm throwing it up the inside for 11th place on lap 6 of the race, the way that we saw in Abu Dhabi this past week with certain drivers. It's just, it can be done the old-fashioned way, and I don't think people realize that.
Well, very well said. I think you're onto something.
Mm-hmm. I know I am. It worked for me last season, so I'm not going to change.
Yeah. Well, I think that would definitely help clean it up because, I'm not going to comment much on the behind the scenes of the how the stewards, the communication, but I will just sum up and say I think we could all agree. I think cleaning up those tickets would have a lot better trade-offs to the process. This way we can just kind of submit our stuff, get reviewing and release it, and kind of just get things done that way. But let me pull up. I do have the Golden Class Stewards decision here. And I will go through. This was the incident between Whisper. This was the original Stewards decision between Carson and Whisper. It goes as followed. No further action. Whisper was entitled to space on the inside. Carson turned early onto the racing line, and Whisper turned in a little late, so neither driver appeared to be primarily at fault. That was submitted, appealed, and the appeal came out as this. So this was the updated Stewards decision appeal. Carson appealed the decision of ticket 59 with contact with Whisper, and this is what it had said. Appeal upheld. TCR stewards unanimously voted and determined that the Golden Steward had the right decision in the incident involving Carson and Whisper. Before entering the corner, Carson had red arrows from Whisper. Per TCR Rule 1.3, he officially becomes a defending driver at that point. Carson had more space to leave for Whisper, who is entitled to space as he was in position before the break-in point. Whisper could have done more to avoid contact with Carson due to both drivers being at fault for the incident. Per TCR Rules 1.1, this was deemed a racing incident. The vote from the TCR stewards fell short of the 2/3 required vote to overturn the original decision. Carson no longer has an appeal for the rest of the season. So since it was unanimous, that was the decisions. Now I want to give you my thoughts. So let's see if I'm tech savvy enough. If you're watching on YouTube, I will have the incident up here very shortly. Let's see.
Should I play the Jeopardy theme song right now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, well, I don't know if I want to sing it.
Oh, go ahead. Well, you offer it.
No, I can't sing, no. No, I should be a little more prepared next time. That'll be for episode 32, ladies and gentlemen. I will introduce the Jeopardy theme song, and you know what, actually? I think we are going to introduce it on Thursday for the Platinum Class race. I'm going to sneak it in at some point. There we go. That's a new sound effect to the broadcast.
Yes, sir. Alright, I think I got it. So, if, assumably, I got it correct, this is on board with Carson. I'll play it through once so everybody knows and sees it, and then I'll give you my opinion. Oh, you know what, Camden? Let me share my screen, too. Hold up.
Ooh, perfect.
Let me take this thing away. How do I...
Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Bum 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 bup, bup, bup.
Oh. Wait, I don't want to do this.
That's all the singing you're getting from me this week.
Wait, but how do I go back? I might have to clip this. God damn it. How do I... Oh, there we go. Oh, woo! Look at me go! Let me share my screen so you can see it. Sorry, folks. Everybody.
Little intermission.
This way you can see what I'm talking about, you know?
Mm-hmm.
This way, if you have any opinions, you could also...
Oh yeah, look at that.
Oh, we shouldn't be able to see that here. Alright, you can see this on now.
I can.
Alright, let's play...
And they can see it too.
Once through, yeah, absolutely. So I was going through turn 4. Oh, you even have the other point of view. Oh, great. I could keep it all on one screen. Perfect. So that was all together. So here's my thoughts right now. I'm actually going to go on board with Whisper here. I do agree with the original decision, racing incident, no further action, and here is why. And I do agree with the actual original thing, which says both are at fault, both could have done something differently. And the reason I say this is because looking at where the contact was, from this angle, it seems as though they kind of meet in the middle of the corner, middle of the apex. And this is what the stewards are saying, where both drivers could have added a little bit more room. Because you could see Carson is basically on the given racing line, which means if you go back to where the contact was on his screen, it's about there. It's about there. The trajectory of Carson's car would be about hitting the apex. And you could also say, well, there's a whole bunch of room on the, there's a whole bunch of space given. But that's kind of irrelevant until once you get into the braking zone. So once we get into the braking zone, now yes, Whisper is not alongside Carson, but he is given red arrows, and that's kind of what we use by meaning that you have to do a good defense there. But he did have red arrows, so that means he is looking down the inside. So he's kind of entitled to some space, but you can see where Carson's car was placed and where Whisper's car was placed. It was basically, they just met in the middle of the apex. Whisper had control of his car, Carson had control of his car, and that's really what it comes down to. I would say also that it's no rule that a driver has to hit their apex. That's not a rule in racing. So Carson and Whisper, none of them have to hit that set apex. Obviously you would think Whisper would try to hit the apex, giving Carson the room. But a similar incident where I like to point out is, I don't have it in front of me to show, but back in 2019 there was an incident between the two Haas's of Grosjean and Magnussen in the hairpin when they were trying and testing their new parts and such, and I think they contacted on like the lap 1 of the race, I believe, or maybe it was later on after a pit stop, not too sure. But they both went in side by side, and granted they were a lot more even, meaning the front wheels and the rear wheels were together. Here was not the case. They weren't even going into the braking zone. But the two Haas's in that race that I'm referencing, whoever was on the outside turned in, and whoever was on the inside didn't hit the apex. So I don't know who was, Grosjean or Magnussen, vice versa, who was on the inside, who was on the outside. But whoever was on the inside didn't hit the apex. He kind of went deep into the corner. And whoever was on the outside turned in and hit the car, and they both met in the middle of the corner. And that is kind of what we're referencing as to what the decision is between the two drivers, because there's no rule that says the inside driver has to hit the apex. But obviously, if you're on the outside, you're going to want to be as close as you can be to the other car. You know, you don't want to go all the way out far left here. You know, you want to be pretty much on the apex or as close to the other car. But if the car on the inside doesn't want to hit the apex and wants to run you up a little bit, they're entitled to kind of do that. So this is a little bit different because Carson is leading into the corner, and Whisper is kind of, I guess, making, I wouldn't say a dive bomb, because he is quite close. I mean, entering, I mean, his wing, he's like almost, maybe slightly behind, but I mean, he's showing the move quite early. He's showing his cards that he wants to go down the inside, and he had pretty much good control until the contact, which you could say, you know, might not have happened if you know, Carson didn't turn in as much, and maybe Whisper wouldn't have had contact if he went more down the like if he turned more aggressively as well. So at the end of it, based off the rules, we can't definitively say it's one or the other, because Carson just got hit right here. And you can see his car, I mean, his trajectory is to the apex. So, you know, he didn't do the best of leaving room at this point when the contact was made, because there is more room he could go. If you were going through this corner side by side, this car would be a little bit more toward the left here, and then the other right car would be kind of where I guess GTR line is, maybe a little bit more in the inside. So that's why it's a racing incident. You can't solely put any blame on either driver. It looks different than when you break it down and when you actually start applying the rules. And I think that's kind of my general thoughts on it. I don't know if you agree, Camden, at all. I don't have the rule book in front of me. Obviously, when I was doing the appeal, I was looking at all the statements and the other pictures and evidence, and there was just nothing here that stated for me, yeah, we need to give a penalty out, because I think both drivers could be at fault for this.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm going to speak from somebody who has been in a similar situation. Last season, was it last season? No, it was 2 seasons ago in Australia. I was in a similar battle for the win where we were going side by side into the corner. It was me and Nando Kamers. That's a blast from the past right there. But we went side by side into the corner, and I ended up turning in a little too much. We hit and we both spun out. Immediately after the race, I went and posted to the stewards because, you know, I was upset and I figured somebody was at fault for the incident. It turned out that I was at fault for the incident, and I ended up submitting myself into a penalty. So sometimes, you know, sometimes somebody's at fault, but really this is just a racing incident. And maybe if Carson took, you know, a little bit longer after the race to look at the replay and maybe calm down a little bit, he would have just let it go. And yeah, sometimes somebody isn't at fault and it's just a racing incident. And personally, I wouldn't have submitted Whisper. Like, it really didn't do anything to Carson in the moment. Like, he lost maybe 2 car lengths to Whisper, but it really was not that big of a deal.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say as well. I don't think it was really worth doing an appeal for that. And it didn't even affect him in the standings. He said he was doing it more because he didn't. And sometimes your judgment is vagued a little bit when it's your personal incident, which I agree. Although sometimes not all the time, but most times your own incident, and I've been guilty to that a lot. I mean, I've been, I mean, how many times? But yeah, I wouldn't have submitted it that there, and I think Carson was more submitting it because he thought that he just got bumped and runned, and he overtook, and there was no penalty for it. I think it was more of a racing incident. It would have been a little different if it would have been a little different if Carson gave a little bit more room, and then Whisper went in there and his car was not under control, and he wiped up the track and hit into him. It would have been a little bit more different there, but I say for most, I would say even for that, I probably wouldn't have even submitted that, to be honest. I mean, I'm only submitting if it affects me back into the race, and if it's something major, some minor things there. I mean, he didn't get no one got damaged. No, that doesn't make any difference to an incident. Whatever the result is doesn't really matter. It's more of the before the incident.
Yeah, I agree. And, I'm at the point, Seafreeze, where I'm only going to be submitting people for obvious stuff. Like this past week in qualifying, you having a giggle, I ended up submitting him because he interfered with my qualifying lap. And it was really obvious because I took a long time to approach him. We were going through the slower corners of Sector 3, so he had a lot of time to get out of the way. And once I approached him, I had to alter my line. So that was obvious. But something as little as a bump, and you lose maybe 2 car lengths to the other guy, that happens. And, I will say one thing for Carson, though. So there was a little dialogue in the ticket afterwards with the stewards, and when Carson tried to do the appeal, his appeal wasn't taken lightly by the stewards, and I don't necessarily agree with kind of scoffing at somebody's appeal the way that they did with Carson's, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That's pretty much what they did. He's entitled to his appeal, just like anyone is, but I don't think it's worth putting in an appeal for that. I don't think it was worth putting in a ticket, let alone using your one appeal when there's 12 races to go. So I just think everyone needs to I don't know, maybe we need like a group meditation session or something, because everyone's kind of on edge, and we're only 3 races in, Seafreeze. We got to do something.
Yeah, I mean, I think yoga is good. I think ice cream always helps.
Can't go wrong with a good ice cream cone. What's your go-to flavor, real quick?
Oof.
Go-to flavor.
Well, you know what? I usually go to Carvel. I know there's not many up there by you, but I get a nice. I get the Sunday Dasher. I get the peanut butter. I know you can't have that as well.
No, I can't. No, that would kill me.
I get usually I get the peanut butter Dasher, peanut butter Reese's Cup Sunday Dasher. So anything with like a Reese's is usually good. With vanilla ice cream and Reese's is pretty good. But if not, cookies and cream hits pretty nicely. I will say cookies and cream, cookie dough. More along the lines of those.
Yeah, so I will say for me, so for the longest time, it was just generic vanilla. And I still do love generic vanilla, you can't go wrong with it. But I'm telling you, ice cream is meant to be served on a hot day, and there's no better flavor for that than coconut. So that's my go-to flavor for ice cream. Yes, it's very good. Yes, I know, but it's very good.
But coconut
ice cream, yes.
Oh my gosh.
It's
coconut?
Great.
Well, you know what? I'm not going to knock it because I have never tried coconut ice cream. I don't think I have. But you know what? I will. I'll get a small cup because I'm not going to, waste a whole bunch on just coconut. But yeah, I'll try it. I'll let you know. How about that?
Okay. Yep, it's perfect for a hot day in the sun. It makes you feel like you're just sitting on an island. Sitting back in that chair, sunglasses on. It's perfect. So that's something that Chibar would be doing just about every other day, right? He seems to be off somewhere far away. It seems like more often than not.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. If you do a nice finish in the Golden Class, maybe a podium.
No, come on, no podium.
Podium.
Come on.
Listen,
okay, I just did a bet recently where I had to qualify inside the top 10, or else I would have to drink coffee. Now, I didn't qualify inside the top 10, so I did the bet. But I mean, you got to make it realistic. Like,
all right, top 5. You have the whole season, though.
Let's do. Okay, Netherlands is this week, right? I'm just gonna put this out. I'm gonna put all the dirty laundry out there. I had a dream recently that I finished 7th at the Netherlands this week. So if I finish top 7 sea freeze, then you have to eat coconut ice cream. How does that sound?
Fine, I'll do it.
There we go.
I'll do it on the podcast too.
Oh, sweet. With camera and everything. Like, we're gonna get to see you. No?
I don't know about that. We'll see.
All right.
Anywho, going back to that, just to finish those thoughts, and then we'll move on to these other topics, which are a little shorter. I do agree. I think the way the ticket system that if we change it, when somebody puts an appeal or if somebody puts in an incident, the stewards should just accept and ask for footage and move on. Unless they're asking for an explanation for the appeal or for the incident, whether or not they should appeal or not, because some drivers will ask for more of an explanation. Usually it's best to do that in private messages, and then usually the drivers will determine if the explanation was good enough for them, and sometimes they'll appeal, and that's probably the right way to go about it. If a driver appeals and now in the incident that either they're asking or the stewards are just explaining to explain, that shouldn't happen in that ticket. That ticket is going to the stewards, where other stewards are then going to review. The tickets aren't there to discuss and have conversations and have other people jump in. It's solely to put your statement, put your footage. That is going to the stewards. That's getting sent to the stewards. So we don't need discussion. We don't need explanation. We don't need anything in there, because some stewards do look through it all. Or if there's a lot of chatter, they're not going to read any of it, and that hurts also the other drivers, because they're not going to read the statements and whatnot. So that's kind of my opinion there. I think it's on both driver and stewards to just submit stuff. If you need explanation, go to private message. If that, leave it to be. And my final thing is, it's not up to us whether somebody appeals or not, if it's stupid or not. It's not up to us to judge. They just need to provide new evidence, and that is something we'll be, looking at in the rules to clarify a little bit more. I know it just says new evidence, so that could mean, I guess, pretty vague. It's up to, I guess, was it objective opinion? And I guess we could clarify a little bit more so we all know what would be new evidence. I think that was a little bit of a miscommunication between everybody, the stewards, drivers, and moving forward. I think we'll try and clarify that. For me, I think it's pretty much anything that's not in the original ticket, and citing of the rules, extra screenshots, different footage, different angles, different point of views, referencing other incidents that may be similar or very alike, different stewards' decisions that were ruled on in the past, went one way and then went the other way. You could bring that up in sake of consistency. And when I mean stewards' decisions, I mean probably in the last season or so, not going back seasons, because a lot has changed since then. So we'll look at that. We'll change a few things, but I think it'll be a lot better moving forward. But I think that's all I got on that. All that's nonsense. Hopefully we don't have much of that here at Netherlands this week. I don't know if you have anything else, Camden.
Nope, we can move on to the next topic, which is just as spicy as this one.
Now, I will say, this one I might rant a little bit. Oh
boy, let me get my popcorn real quick. Hold on.
And I'm only doing it because it's B-Tom, and I think he deserves it a little bit. And he could also take it a little bit, in my opinion. 4-time Platinum Class champion B-Time. Went to the Platinum Class last week at Abu Dhabi. Firstly, I will say on that race, and we're going to make sure the host, whether it is still professional or whether it's someone else, we're going to make sure that they don't leave the lobby. And I think we now know, how bad that was, because for a good portion of the commentary in the stream, we didn't know who was where. So we're going to make sure whoever it is doesn't do that. Not singling out professional. I mean, that does happen. So he did wreck out, and he might have been mad about it, and he left at it out of the lobby. He was probably frustrated, but we just have to make sure it doesn't happen again moving forward, and just remember that DNFing is fine, but just stay in the lobby until the race is over, then call it a night, especially if you're going to be a lobby host. So not throwing any shade there, but we're going to make sure that that doesn't happen again. I know someone had said that we should put in the rules of some sort, and I think I kind of do agree. The lobby host shouldn't be leaving the lobby. I think it's kind of hard to tell if someone does leave and it's not just a disconnect, but I guess the big tail sign would be if they DNF'd or not. So that was definitely intentional. That professional left. Again, I'm just using it as an example. We settled everything out, so it was all fine. So obviously that one he left intentionally, but let's say someone, lobby host, just left the lobby in the middle of the race and came back, then you can kind of tell it was more of a disconnect. But maybe we can just add that in to the lobby settings in the rules and whatnot. But anywho, once we got figured all that out, and once we know what we were looking at on the Platinum Class race, it was because the standings were all messed up and everything, and I was watching, and I was like, man, what the hell's happening here? I don't know who was who, and I said, man, Sir Charles, he had the same thing that I had last game, actually. I remember I did one with you, and I was saying the same thing. But once you guys rejoined and everything, it settled itself, because I was looking at other people's point of views and everything. Well, in any case, once it finally situated itself out, we had a last safety car. Now, let me see if... Do you know why that came out, Camden? Was it D'Angelo, or who
yeah,
that
it
last
was
one? Runner-up?
It was D'Angelo. He was in the Latifi corner. He got spun around, and I think he was sitting there for a little bit, but the safety car came out anyways, even though he didn't retire on track or anything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was just looking at the video. Yeah, you know what? Let me see if I could do this again. Let me bring up the video here.
Oh boy! Look at you, Seafreeze, being all tech savvy today.
I try. See if put that Jeopardy music back on again.
No, I busted out my vocal cords singing it the first time, so you're lucky you even got me to sing at all. So
yeah, here we go. All right, coming through. This was that was D'Angelo right there, or Antius, as he's now called.
He's D'Angelo. He can fight me on that, but he's D'Angelo. And this guy is Jose. Stop changing your names, people.
Oh, he got hit, and then I think Main Wayne might have got involved as well. And you see there was some damage, and then all of a sudden, boom, safety car. So he wasn't sitting there for that long. I mean, you could see D'Angelo was moving again. So, saying that, I heard in the Discord that I think it was from B-Tom, but also others, that was intentional. I mean, he was racing other cars. I mean, how could that be intentional? And I think he stopped racing anyway, and he had penalties as well. So I don't think any of that was intentional to get a safety car. No one was stopping on track for X amount of time, and I mean, we just showed it here. I mean, that wasn't an extended period of time. I mean, he went wide out the corner, D'Angelo, and I think he got tapped by Just Jose, and he got tagged by Main Wayne again, because there was the damage there, and then already the safety car's out. So I mean, it's not an extended amount of time at all. So that is what brought out the safety car, unintentionally, in my opinion.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I never thought that it was intentional at all. But obviously, he was the reason for the safety car.
Now we move on to the final here with Forzan in the lead. And you can see safety car in this lap. And now I'm going to just let it roll through, because it's important to note that the leader, Forzan in this scenario, has to give enough room for the safety car to get into the pit lane. You could also see there was an incident there between B-Tom and Bama, where I think he got the penalty removed, but B-Tom got an illegal overtake, or he had to let Bama back through. And it just swapped positions. So he did the overtake here. He did get a penalty for it, but we think it was reversed in the ruling afterwards. I will also note that the steward's decisions are still going through, and I think there's an appeal still set. So I did not go through to officially see who won the race, but we'll have to look at that in a minute. But anywho, that's what was happening there between the squabble. So you can see the yellow dot, safety car's there. Forzan is the leader here. So as the leader, you have to have, you're responsible for the safety car to be coming into the pit lane so that you don't get the pit limiter. Because if you don't leave enough room and the safety car is still out on track and you try and go and the safety car's not in the pit lane yet, the game will limit you, and everyone else will get stacked up on the field. That would be the leader's fault. He would get a penalty for that. We've had rulings way in the past, and that is how we deem that. If the safety car is in the pit lane and the leader goes, the leader needs to go. Once you go, you go. You cannot stop then again. Because then that would be jumbling up the field, and that would also then be a penalty. So coming through here, we're on board, and I think he goes through that corner, and then you could see he stopped right away. And actually, Camden, can you look to see if that was a steward's decision, if that got released? Because I'm on my screen share here. And that is where there was contact between Bama and B-Tom here. Because B-Tom got hit up the back. And if you could see, you can't have his... he had rear wing damage. And... he had rear wing damage and side pod damage from that incident there.
So Forzan received a 10-second time penalty and 2 penalty points from that incident. He also got another penalty point for not submitting footage, so he will be starting at the back of the grid this week.
Wow. So a win possible brings him to at least 9th place. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's a shame. Like, I don't want to feel bad for Forzan because, like, the first few races of the season, his results have not been equal to his pace, but he's kind of done it to himself, you know? And I'm not saying that to be mean. That's just how it is. Like, Forzan could easily be leading the points right now, and he's probably going to be, like, 6th or 7th in the standings after the penalty.
Yeah, and obviously I have to look at other people's penalties as well, so he might finish a little higher up, but not much. So, yeah, that's a big hit by him. So yeah, he obviously did not win, which means I think Bama might have won that race then. Right?
Well, B-Tom got his 5-second penalty removed.
Yeah, but he
did Bama finish
yeah, I'm
behind
looking.
him?
Yeah, he finished behind him. So it was Forzan, Bama, then B-Tom, then Meb.
Yep. So Bama is 2 for 2 this season.
Yeah, and that puts him right up in the championship after I do all the points. So, if not leading, well, I don't know. He missed the first round, obviously, so we'll have to see. Anywho, that was a crazy ending, and Forzan. He does have a win. Let's mind you, he does have that 100% finale win at Miami back in, what was that, season 14, I do believe. So he does have a win. He should have maybe 1 or 2 more, arguably. But I think, you know what, I don't know how much experience he has in other leagues, but if this is his first time really in a competitive league, leading laps and trying to win races, he's putting himself in situations he hasn't really been in a lot. And that's not saying a diss or anything, it's just he really hasn't been leading that many safety car. That might have been his first time leading a safety car in TCR's Platinum class. So
yeah,
that comes with pressure, and that comes with mistakes, and he did make a mistake, and it did cost him the race win. If he went regularly and correctly, I think he probably wins that race. So, unfortunate, but
I agree. I do want to say one thing real quick because I actually was somehow leading a safety car restart this week in Abu Dhabi in the Golden class, and just from my perspective, because I was in similar shoes to Forzan, it did seem like the safety car was going a little slow coming back to the pits. I remember I put my pace down to about 50 miles an hour at one point, and I just felt like I was crawling around the track. So maybe it's the type of scenario to where the safety car could come in sooner. Like, when you get the notification of safety car in this lap, maybe they start that a little sooner on the track. But I don't know. Like you said, it is the responsibility of the leader, and the leader needs to make sure that they're keeping a reasonable pace and a reasonable distance to the safety car.
Yeah, tough spot for Forzan. But then, this is what I really want to go into, and we're going to put it in a poll. I know I said we were going to do polls last week, or last episode, or 2 episodes now, and I'm going to make it either tonight or tomorrow, and this way we get that out to everybody, and we'll have the results probably on next podcast or in the Discord announcement. But I'll add this as a question of reduced damage, because I'm just kind of curious of what people think. But B-Tom, he lost the race, mainly because he got rear wing damage, which was not fixable. And later, after that race, after the interviews, he makes a ticket saying that he's suggesting we go back to, or not back to, because we've never run reduced damage, and that's what I was trying to explain to him. We've never ran reduced damage in TCR's history. We've never, ever, ever ran reduced damage or reduced fix rate. We've never ran reduced. Ever. It's always been standard, or once they, 2021, when they added that new rule with the, where you get side pod damage and rear wing damage, there was the damage, which was either reduced standard or simulation, and they also have the damage rate. Same thing. You can do reduced standard or simulation. Before that, it used to be reduced full or simulation, so basically same thing. But we've been running the standard damage since it's been in existence. We've never ran reduced damage, and I have that in our stewards chats, in our rules, in our lobby settings, in our other rule books, settings we give to our lobby hosts. I would know that we run standard damage and standard fixed rate. We've always done that. And B-Tom, after the race, opens the ticket, wants reduced damage, probably because he just lost the race. Now, granted, he said he had that opinion for a long time, and that is fine. But you got to look at the optive here of, you just lost the race because of you got damage, and now you're in the suggestions tab demanding basically that we run reduced damage, and that we've always ran reduced damage, and somehow it's on standard now, which is absolutely not the case. I don't know if you ran in another league or not that might have had that, but that we've always ran standard. I know that for sure, because there's many times I had damage, and others as well had damage that was non-fixable, and that's just what it goes down to. These cars are, it's not with slight contact that you get that type of damage. It's pretty big damage. So, we're league racing here. We're racing here. In my opinion, it doesn't matter if it's on the game or not. If you get hit pretty good, whether it's your fault or not, you got damage to your car, and that's just league racing, and just how it is on other more advanced sims. And if you can't fix the damage, you can't fix the damage. So, we do run standard damage, and I will add it to the poll just to see what everyone else thinks. If you run reduced damage, you would still get wing damage, obviously. It wouldn't affect your car as much, and you wouldn't get side pod or wing damage. But those events are pretty rare anyway. But like I said, I think you should be able to get damage, and we've always ran that as well. So that was a little bit fun in the tickets there and the suggestions that night. But yeah, we don't need a full-on explanation of why you want reduced damage, V-Tom. You could put the suggestion in. It's not a complex suggestion. You just put the suggestion in, and we're gonna add it to the poll. We got it. I got it. I got the suggestion, and that's what I was saying that night. I got the suggestion. You didn't have to open up 3 suggestions, and you don't need to keep opening them. I got your suggestion. Thanks for your suggestion. I'm gonna add it to the poll. We'll see what everyone else thinks in an actual vote. So we're doing exactly what you want, and we'll see what other people's opinions are. So yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe if he loses next week somehow, I think he wants the safety car off too, so I don't know.
I did see him say that, but yeah, I mean, I haven't seen many scenarios of that sort of thing happening where, minor contact turns into this big damage where you have irreplaceable, real wing damage. Yeah.
Because, Forzan stopped, and then B-Tom stopped, and bammo, right into the back of him.
But I still think it was just more damage than he should have gotten. I will agree with him on that, but it's not. Like I said, I haven't seen many scenarios of that happening, so I don't think this is necessarily a problem. We want to change things if it's a problem, not if it's a one-time thing and it's just an unfortunate circumstance. If it keeps happening with more people, in the coming weeks, then yeah, we'll have to make a change. But we're not just going to make changes just because something happened just out of the blue. And just in general, we need damage to be on. There needs to be repercussions for contact. And I'm not just saying for scenarios like that where there's a stack up on the restart, but we don't want people just using these cars as bumper cars and just running everybody off the road, because that's what's going to happen. If we turn damage completely off, it would turn into a shit show. These races would be worse than they are.
Yep.
So we need to have damage.
Oh, there's no question. There has to be some sort of damage, and I think standard is right in the middle. I mean, of what a league race should be. So, yeah, I just thought it was interesting. The suggestion is cool. We'll take it, but we've definitely ran standard damage. We'll see what everyone thinks in the vote. But it's, in my opinion, to go right after the race and submit the suggestion and then do it 3 times over. Comes off a little weird from others, but I'm just playing, and yeah, we'll see when what everybody thinks when the vote comes out, or the vote goes out, if I have to put it out. Other than that, that's about it for round 3. The only thing I will mention, because I know he's listening, Chibar got P2. Chibar's on the podium again, and that was his first time since season 14. He had 2 in that season, then that season. So, yeah, he's back up on the podium. It was a good race by him. Cyonical had another win, and that is tomorrow for the silver class, or today when this goes up. Silver class is Tuesdays, 8:45 p.m. Eastern Time. So Cyonical looks like a nice favorite in that class, as others have been missing races and getting some DNFs. But Chibar, after finishing P2 and 5th in the first round, he sits 2nd in the Drivers' Championship. So if you're a Chibar fan, you got to tune in.
That's right. Yep, Chibar going for that championship.
Yep. But other than that, I think also last thing on Golden Class, I wanted to just mention that I thought J&B and Remsley and G-Cheer Line, they had a nice race at the end of the Golden Class, and J&B did lose it. He was going for his first Golden Class win, but it went to Remsley instead, his first Golden Class win. So, right, it was his first one.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But Remsley basically just stood behind J&B the last 8-10 laps or so, and saved up his battery. J&B was kind of using it, and towards the end, he didn't have much to defend, and on the last lap, Remsley went for the overtake, used all of his battery, and was kind of easy. And that's what you're going to see a lot on this game, with how strong the DRS battery and slipstream combo is. So well played by Remsley. J&B able to finish 2nd, strong showing. I liked what I saw from him, and GT was on the podium as well, so it was a double points for Alpine.
Yeah, Alpine looking strong early on, and J&B really adapting well. First season in the silver class was last season, and he has taken no time to go up to the golden class and really be a favorite. I mean, the first 3 races, he's been fast in all 3 of them, so it's good to see.
Yeah, it's been impressive. But yeah, so this week we're at Netherlands, round 4. So that's the 3 tire special, so you have to use all 3 tire compounds in the 50% race, and each tire needs to have some sort of green stint in them. So I'm not talking about a full lap. As long as there was a green flag, basically, and you ran some portion of it, then you're pretty much good. But I wouldn't overthink it too much. It's going to play very similar to a regular race, with the safety cars coming out, and you're going to have some in Netherlands, so I don't think it'll be too crazy with the strategy, because I think there will be safety cars and everyone will have a chance to put on each tire at some point in the race. So that's this week. Hope you tune in. We have 2 more topics quickly to get to. We'll start with NASCAR, bad on the road courses. I know this is what you wanted to kind of mention, so give us your take on it.
Yeah, so this weekend NASCAR was at Watkins Glen, which is one of the few road courses that is on the NASCAR schedule. There's about 5 or 6 road courses on a 36 race schedule, so there's not many of them, but it was hard to watch. It was probably the worst race of the season, and people have different definitions for what makes a bad race. It could be for some people that there's not a lot of cautions or safety cars. It could be that there wasn't an exciting finish, but this race had nothing. The only thing that happened was Chase Elliott running out of gas on the backstretch. There were no side-by-side racing. There wasn't a close finish. It was hard to watch. People got separated out. And it's been a problem, not just for this race, but the past couple of years, because NASCAR, in the last 2 years, have gone to the next-gen car. This new car that isn't as high on horsepower, and it's made to kind of even out the field. And it's been really good on the bigger tracks, like the intermediates, the super speedways. You see a lot of 3-wide, 4-wide racing, a lot of side-by-side action. Like, it's easy to watch. It's exciting. But the road courses and the short tracks, in particular, have been tough to watch. And I remember seeing an interview with Chase Elliott and Christopher Bell last month. And they were basically saying how these cars need, like, 200 more horsepower in them. They need a lot more horsepower, but the reason why that's easier said than done, though, is because NASCAR has been trying to save the team's money by making it kind of more of like a spec series, but just trying to also limit the cost for the teams, just because that's kind of been an issue for the teams as of late. I will say, if there's any time that they're going to increase the horsepower, it's going to be in the next couple of years, because they are still waiting on that TV rights deal to come through, which that will give all the teams a lot of money. So, yeah, I just wanted to kind of say that NASCAR needs to just up the horsepower, put the races back in the hands of the drivers and just make these road courses not painful,
Yeah, I agree. I think the more horsepower is pretty much widely accepted, because they run so low. You can go, a lot easier on the throttle. A lot of the ovals too are a lot of them are flat, or they used to be. It's not as much, I think, but still, I think having more horsepower would definitely add a lot. I think my biggest problem with the road courses is I think it's funny. Like, after every NASCAR race, people ask, was it a good race or not? And I don't think every race has to be, wow, it was a great race. Like, or, oh, our car didn't work well, overtaking wasn't great. Or, oh, we didn't have a battle for the lead. Like, so we have to change things now. Just because we have one bad race at Watkins Glen, which I didn't think it was bad, I just think there wasn't much competition. Like, I think William Byron was quite strong, and he went on and won the race. We don't have stage breaks on the road courses anymore, so for that, there's no stopping. Originally, I was supporting the idea of no stopping at the stage breaks. I'm going to say that I kind of disagree with that now, just because I feel after having it in the sport for a lot of years now, since they implemented it, I do like the stage breaks just in general. I think it's a good restart, a reset, and brings everybody back together, and then you have another restart. The one thing I will say, and I think I did hear this on Actions Detrimental by Denny Hamlin on his podcast, he was saying the way in which you place the stage breaks on a road course matter, so that you can open up strategy with the fuel, whether you can have a split strategy of whether or not you want to stay out and get stage points, or do you want to come in and try and work for the better strategy overall and try and go for the win or a better result in the end. So I think the stage breaks, stage 1 is always so short in some of the road courses, so they have to place the stage breaks 1 and 2 a little bit better. This way it opens the door for strategy. I felt like they weren't placed overall the best, and I think if you do that, I think we'll have good races, and I think you could restart the field when it's time to go back green again. Because if you think of why we went to road courses in general, we went to road courses because the fans liked it and it was chaotic and it was a good race. Now we were saying, remember, it was Indy last season. Last year we went to the Indy for the Indy road course, and everyone was just barreling into each other into turn 1. So then we started to fix it. So we moved the restart zone back around the corner. This way we don't have much stack ups. I think we did that at another road course too. I think there was one earlier on. I don't remember which one it was before Indy. I don't know if you're remembering.
Which road course?
Yeah, I think they moved the restart zone.
Oh, in
It wasn't Watkins Glen or Indy. It was before that. It was one Sonoma. I think they changed it. No, Sonoma was fine because you have the dirt there. Man, there was another.
I know they changed the restart at Indy.
Yeah, it was another road course. I don't know if you could pull the schedule up and see which ones were before.
Yeah, let me
But
double check real quick.
But anywho, my biggest thing was they went and they're going to 7 different road courses, and now all of a sudden they're like, oh, I wonder why it's so boring, because now you got rid of stage breaks, and now you move the restart zones back to where there's no chaos. So it's like you're manipulating it so much based off of what the fans feel. And it's like, imagine if F1 did that. Like, not every race is great in F1, but we don't come here and sit, man, what could we do to make it exciting? What are we going to do next week? And they change things on the fly. NASCAR thinks too much about the fans' entertainment rather than the sport and its integrity, and that's why I've generally liked Formula 1 a little bit more, because of that aspect. But now we went to all these road courses because it was fun, it was chaotic, that's what the fans wanted, and now you're changing the product, because now you're making it less chaotic, and that's not really what we want to do. So if they could put back stage breaks where you restart, keep the restarts where they are, like don't make it chaotic, or make it chaotic and go back to single file, but at least have a restart in the stages, I think would be better, and they have to better place them, and I think adding more horsepower would also help too.
So the other 2 road courses that we've had besides Sonoma is the Chicago Street Course and Circuit of the Americas. So I don't know if one of those 2 rings a bell at all.
Oh yeah, so this is what my point was. So when they went to Circuit of the Americas, that's when they had they went there earlier this year, right?
Yes.
Yeah. There was, who was it? Jenson Button did his first race there. He was saying how aggressive all the drivers were and how chaotic turn 1 was, because they did the restart out of the last corner, went up the hill, and it was chaos into turn 1. And you know, Jenson Button and other, I think there was someone else from International was saying that that style of racing is just so aggressive, there's no respect in the field. And I think that's what caused NASCAR to change things, because then when they went to the Chicago Street Course, they had the restart zone in the corner. You remember? It was like
Yes.
in the corner, and that was done intentionally based off of COTA. Otherwise, they would have put it on the straight, not out of in a corner. But they didn't want stack ups into turn 1, so they put in the corner to help, you know, separate the field a little bit. So then they carried that over to Indy. Sonoma, it's not a problem because there was respect there, because you're going into the grass and you're going uphill. And they've gone there a lot at the time. It was more of Indy because you're going down that long straightaway into turn 1. Watkins Glen, it's not really much of an issue again because it's more of a track they go to, and it's pretty wide as well. So I think they just changed it, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that we need to make all these changes just because of one boring race, but if there's any problems with the road courses, it's the same problems with the short tracks, to where the drivers have been vocal on they want more horsepower, and you know, some of the fans are falling asleep during the races, so why not just make the situation better for all parties and just add a little bit more horsepower? and just fix everything that way. I'm not saying this is like a catastrophic deal. Like the racing overall, the past couple of years has been great. But there's always room for improvement, and the horsepower, like you can't go wrong with more horsepower.
Yeah, it was almost like when they went to Chicago. Remember they were doing the single file restarts, right?
Yeah, they did single file there.
Which was out of nowhere. So then that also brought the question, should road courses be single file? And they said, no, we're not going to do single file, but we're going to change where the restart zone is. So when they went to Indy, that's what they did instead of going single file. So it's just weird that they're changing it so much, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. What's the next road course? Is there the
next road course? Yes, and that's the last road course on the season.
Yeah, so we'll see how that one goes. I actually quite like the Roval. I think it's
Me too.
Quite fun.
All
right, so let's go F1 second half predictions. We're coming back to actually the Netherlands this week. It's at the end of this week, right?
Yeah, isn't that funny? F1 and TCR are both at the same place. I wonder how that happened.
Oh man, that wasn't. Did you do that intentionally or no?
I did, yes.
Oh, you did? I was gonna say, because I didn't make the schedule, folks. So if you have any inquiries about the schedule and you don't like it, go to throw a rock at Camden or something. Don't come to me.
That's right. Yep. I live in. Well, I'm not going to tell you where I live, but yep. Blame me for all the schedule mishaps.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, so it was done intentionally. There you have it. This week we'll see if Max can. Is it to tie the record or tie the record of 9 in a row?
It was 10 in a row was the record.
I think it was 9.
I can look it up.
There we
we'll
go.
See who's correct. You might be right, but
I think Vettel has 9, so I think this is to tie it. I don't think he could break the record. I think he's gonna tie it if he has to win.
Yes. Let's see. It is 9. You are correct.
Yes, sir.
And this is huge too. It's at his home track that he could do it.
And he's won there a lot before since they came there. So I would say, does he pick up 9 in a row, or does some other team have some upgrades for him? Does something go wrong? What's the weather going to be like? I don't really know all those things yet, and no one does. But I would say there's a strong probability Max Verstappen at least ties for 9 in a row at his home track.
I agree. And really, you can talk about upgrades all you want, but Red Bull has won every single race this season, and it really hasn't been close. Like, there has not been any other team that has really come close to matching Red Bull. So unless if something happens to Max where he has a mechanical failure, I don't see him not winning this weekend.
Yeah, and we'll see how much more he can. I think the performance of the Netherlands will kind of dictate how the rest of the season will go. But then the other thing is, if he does make 9 in a row, does he break the record then?
I don't know, because you got to think the next track is Monza, and that race tends to be a crapshoot.
Ooh, Monza, yeah. I would say that's a difficult one there. I mean, a lot could happen there. So they are pretty good on the straights, though.
Well, they're pretty good at everything.
Yeah.
Max wins the races by 25 seconds, It's it's a one-man show this season. It's crazy that at the beginning of the year, people were saying that Perez might be able to get Max, and boy, has that aged badly ever since then.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's been rough to watch. He reminds me, and I think obviously a lot of people of Bottas. When Bottas went to Mercedes, he was regarded as a nice, good driver, and he is, and Perez is as well. He won some races, and at times he even beat his teammate. But he never consistently qualified and qualified well and went on to outpace his rival. Verstappen most times will win by Perez, even if Perez finishes second, by a great margin, and Hamilton did the same most races against Bottas. That's just how it is. So, and you look at where Bottas is now, at Alfa Romeo, just kind of chilling there. And I think Perez, his career is kind of took a turn, especially this season, because he had 2 wins and he's thinking, oh, I'm in here for a reason. But that is true, but I think it's very embarrassing. He had a very bad season. I mean, bad luck does happen, but you don't go 4 or 5 races and you can't even make Q. What did he got knocked out he didn't even get to Q3. For 5 races in a row or something like that. That's pretty bad. And then, not to even, if this is going to be one of the most dominant Red Bull cars there is, the
most.
The best. Perez should be finishing second every single race. If Max is winning, and winning by so much, Perez should at least be getting second. He's barely getting podiums. And when he does, it's third.
Just strange how it seemed like he started off well. Like, he was even with Max. Like, he was on par with him. He won 2 of the first 4 races. Max won 2 of the first 4. And last season, he wasn't terrible. He won a few races. He was pretty good. And all of a sudden, Australia happened. Remember how he crashed in, every practice session, qualifying? I don't know what has happened in his brain, what has changed, but it was really, ever since Australia, he's just been incredibly inconsistent, and it's almost like he's forgotten how to drive.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's put so much pressure on himself to go and try and compete with Max that he's just out. He's not doing what he needs to do. Because if you look at a lot of his teammates, he's always been the better teammate, right? He was with
definitely.
Hulkenberg. I think he beat Hulkenberg a lot. He was with Stroll. Was he with Stroll?
Yeah, back at Racing Point?
Yeah, back at Racing Point, yeah. And he beat him there. I don't know what other teammates he's had in the past. I'm trying to blank here, but I think.
And I don't think he's even overrated or anything.
No.
He's still. I still think he deserves to have that spot. If he comes back from the break and wins a couple races, then yeah, he should keep a seat next season. Just because Ricciardo was out of Formula One for an entire year, and I know Ricciardo's a good driver, but I don't think it would be fair to immediately put him back up in the second Red Bull seat. He should have to go and compete with AlphaTauri for a full season, considering he left Red Bull for a while. Perez should have that seat next season as long as he gets back on his feet, but it's just really odd.
Yeah, I think that's what I'll be looking at for the next second half is what can Perez do, and what's the gap between the other cars, and can Red Bull continue this momentum up? I think their car is still significantly better. I know that was a pretty big break for people to bring in upgrades in time for the Netherlands, but I think they'll still have the better car. It's just whether or not can Perez come back and at least be as consistent as he can be. The other thing I'm looking out for is who's going to be that second team. Because we started at the beginning of the season, it was kind of Aston Martin. Ferrari had maybe a race or 2, but they haven't really been there. Mercedes has looked strong on some races. Out of nowhere, McLaren have popped up there with Norris and Piastri. I think Williams even were passing Ferrari at Britain. So, Albon looking pretty nice in the Williams. Will they have a nice step forward as any other team? I probably doubt. But man, it's just imagine if Red Bull wasn't on the grid. I don't know who would be up there.
Yeah, and going back to the NASCAR thing of was it a good race or not, I see those polls for F1 as well, and I've seen a lot of people say, oh, it would be such a better season if Red Bull wasn't there, but honestly, I do think it's been a good season. You have a lot of storylines with Alonso kind of having a bounce-back season. You have some younger drivers like Oscar Piastri competing for podiums, and McLaren having a comeback here late in the season. Like, there's still a lot going on, and, it doesn't take away from the season just because you have one guy winning. I mean, that's how Formula One kind of always has been, with the exception of a few seasons. There's always going to be that one team or one driver that pulls away with it, and that's how you make legends. Max Verstappen is the best driver of this era. Lewis Hamilton's era, I think, has come and gone, and now we're in the Max Verstappen era, and 20 years from now, I hate to say it being a Mercedes fan, but 20 years from now we'll talk about how Max was one of the best drivers of all time.
Yeah. Any bold predictions? Like what's something crazy that's gonna happen? What are we not
crazy?
What are we gonna be talking about that we were not expecting? Like, so what's gonna happen in the second half? Something that's just gonna be the story. Man, we got to do some crazy predictions.
I don't know if there really is going to be. I mean, there'll be stuff that happens. There's always stuff that happens, but this season really is just setting up for Max to dominate. And really, Alonso looked like he could have won a race early on, but I don't. Maybe this will be my prediction. Alonso does not win a race. Neither does Lewis Hamilton. They both do not win a race, and I think that's kind of a bold prediction considering they're third and fourth in points right now. But you look at McLaren, the way they've kind of stepped up and have become that second team. I don't see Alonso winning. I don't see Lewis winning. I don't see either of them winning a race this season.
I'm gonna say that. Let me look up the schedule. I'll give you a nice prediction here.
Okay.
This is Seafreeze's prediction here. So we have the Netherlands, we have Italy, Singapore, Japan, Qatar, Austin, Mexico, Brazil, Las Vegas, and Abu Dhabi. A bold prediction. I will say that we will get a new race winner this season.
It's not a bold prediction. Come on.
Why?
There's only been 2 winners.
No, I meant like a new race winner.
Oh, like Lando Norris?
No.
Oscar Piastri.
I think Piastri's winning a race.
You think he's going to win?
I think he's going to win a race. Well, I think you look back at Brazil. Where were they? Britain. They were really good at the more high-speed sections. When you went more towards the lower speed sections, they weren't as strong, and that was kind of evident in Hungary a little bit, and Belgium, they weren't that great either. But I think you look at Italy, I think you can look, I know there's some slow speed chicanes, but a lot of it is high speed. Ascari, they might be pretty good. Japan has a pretty big S section, high speed there. Coda. There's, yes, low speed corners as well. But I think with their developments, if they continue to bring them out, I think they could be strong. I think you could also look at Las Vegas as well as someone, a track that they could be really good at on a long straight. I think you could really open that to anybody, perhaps. So I thought Piastri will get a race win. Will it be pure pace, or will it be just luck? I don't know. But I think a lot of that relies on, does McLaren bring a better car, even better car? Because their car was pretty good after the break, or before the break. Did they bring upgrades? And if they did, where are they? If they're significantly P2 as the P2 team, then yeah, I think Piastri has a shot at winning if the car is there. If the car's not there, then it's going to be hard for him. But yeah, so we'll see. All relying on, did the gap close, and is it McLaren that's going to be P2, or is it another team? But that's going to be my prediction. Also,
a pretty good prediction.
I think we see a Daniel Ricciardo podium.
Nope.
And a shoey.
Nope.
But alright,
Nope.
But if that doesn't happen, I would love to see that. I mean,
Yeah, I think we all would, but it's not going to happen. Sorry.
those are my bold predictions.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's shaping up for Max to win 15 races this season, and maybe we'll have like a Lando Norris win. I could see that happening. I could see him getting a win, maybe in the next few races or so. Italy tends to be a crapshoot, so maybe he wins there. Maybe Charles Leclerc wins a race. He's been on the podium a couple times. He was on the podium at Belgium. I don't know. I only see maybe one or two different winners this season besides the Red Bull guys winning per usual.
Yes. Alright, well, if you've made it this far in the podcast, let us know your opinions on all the topics we've discussed. Leave them in the comments of the YouTube. That would be much appreciated. Let's have a comment discussion in the comments of the YouTube podcast video. And if you haven't done so already, make sure to hit the like button and tune in for round number 4 of the TCR season. And we're at Netherlands for silver class, golden class, and platinum class. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8:45 p.m. Eastern Time. And yeah, I think that's going to do it for this one. So make sure you're following TCR on all socials, and especially to join the TCR Discord server, where we are the most active. And yeah, thanks for Camden, and it's been a pleasure, myself as well, taking you through this episode. And until next time, have a good night, everybody.